So you got money when you. Do you want some more?
Well, as you say, Kieran always had money. Yes. And Kieran was. I'll tell you this much. I don't think if David paid me money, I can't remember, because he would borrow some back. He did pay it back. He would borrow some.
Yeah, and pay it back.
And then pay it back. But Kieran, when he went to work, I had money every fortnight, I think it was. I can't remember how much it was substantial. I can't remember exactly. And when he left, I remember somebody saying to me, you must miss him now. I said, I'll tell you what, it's terrible, but I miss his money. I miss that regular money every fortnight, which was quite he paid quite a bit.
So, I missed that bit. Did you tell?
But Kieran always had money.
Kieran always had money, but when they came to put the electric off, and the man stood at the door and said, and I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? Mary, I was going to steal from Philip. Well, I wasn't going to steal, I was going to take it. I was going to tell him. But I didn't.
Take money from Kieran's drawer?
Yes, to pay the electric man. I didn't. And, oh my God, Mary happened to loan me the money to pay, so he didn't switch it off. I think Janet or somebody asked me, probably not Janet, did I miss him? I said, tell you the truth, I missed his money more than I missed Kieran, because he was never any trouble. All he did was come in, have a bit of dinner and go, and all I did was do his washing, change his bed and all that kind of thing.
And take the money.
And the money every fortnight, and it was a substantial amount. I can't remember how much, because he paid me, I don't know what it was fortnightly, but it was. And oh my God. And
But I remember him having money, because he had a milk round, didn't he? Do you remember he worked with Mitten?
He did.
Mick the milkman?
It was, I don't know, I can't remember.
But he had a milk round anyway.
He did. And very well. I mean, how old was he when they left home?
He was the last one to leave, wasn't he? So
and I remember saying to him when he bought the house and all that, and I said, look, you don't have to pay me this time, just. He said, no. He said, there you are. So he gave it. And I thought, and that's when people say, isn't that a dreadful thing to say?
What? Isn't what a dreadful thing to say?
That I missed his money more than I missed him. I think I have told him that, and of course he wasn't shocked, as he never is. I'll tell you something else. David got on with Grandad very well for the simple reason, I'll tell you, the difference between David, Kieran and John. David kind of sat down and chatted to him, and they kind of agreed with whatever the other said, or David would take in what Grandad said. John would argue with him. That was a big mistake. If he didn't agree with what he was saying, well, he didn't want to know. Kieran, he really, in awe of him is not the right word, is it?
No, I think he was.
He would, if he said something to Kieran would comment and walk away. He wouldn't get involved in a big discussion. David would. We'd sit there, and they'd
Have a debate.
yes, but he'd kind of agree with
They
Granddad.
agree with him. Yeah.
In a kind of way.
Yeah, but
John argued.
David is a peacemaker, isn't he?
He is.
Yeah.
John argued. And that wasn't. Is that not right?
It is, and I think he really respected Kieran. And sometimes he would say stuff like his winning punch in an argument would be, well, this is what Kieran says.
Yes.
And I became, but this is what I think. He said, well, no, it doesn't matter about that. This is what Kieran thinks.
Yeah.
And it was like,
That's
what
law.
Kieran thinks.
It must
It's
be
right.
right.
That's the end of it. There is no further discussion.
That is
But
very
I always
true.
remember Kieran not having much time for Dad.
No, he didn't.
But he had a lot of time for you there.
He did.
Have everyone. But Dad.
In spite of everything.
So David talked to Dad. I argued with Dad. Kieran would just come in and sort of say, oh yeah, pass it.
He dismissed
passed
what he said.
Judgment. But Dad, I think Dad really wanted Kieran's approval, didn't he?
He did really.
Yeah.
He would have liked him. If he'd had that, he would have known he was right, but he was never right. Poor man, he didn't have a chance, really, did he? But as I could say, David was savvy enough to know the way round, and he could sit and chat for a long, long time. Actually, when Grandad died, and when David visited, I didn't quite know what to say to David.
Really?
Yeah, that's true.
Why?
Because when David came, Dad was always there. They always had discussions. Yeah, I never said that to David, actually. That's very true. They sat either end of the table in the kitchen and discussed.
What about your daughters, Mum?
Oh, now there's another story.
Go on, tell it.
Dad, Grandad, absolutely, those girls could do no wrong. It kind of went awry a bit, you know.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I would just like to vouch for that. That is entirely true.
it's true, isn't it?
But
he never, ever had a crossword with them. Ever.
no, but I would like to point out that's not technically true. They could do wrong.
What did they do?
They're human beings, Mum.
Oh,
They
yes.
must have done something
of course
wrong.
they did.
What you mean is they could do no wrong.
Yeah, they could do no wrong. That's what I said.
But Anita and Lisa, if you're listening to this, I know the truth.
Yeah. I remember Lisa coming in at 10 o'clock one night. Lad said, you were supposed to be home at 9. She said, well, Dad said I can stay till 10 now.
And that was it.
And that was the end of it.
What did he think of his grandkids, like Bernie, Carmine?
Loved his
etc.
grandchildren. He was a far better granddad than he ever was a dad. And that is totally true.
I think he was a pretty good dad.
He was in a sense.
Okay. He wasn't lovey-dovey, but he was...
Boys, his attitude was boys. I went to work when I was 11. I went out on a bread round.
Yeah.
He didn't exactly say that, but I know how he felt.
Yeah.
Boys should be able to get out and do the right thing.
Yeah.
Whatever. That's true, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Funny enough, I think one of reasons I think Kieran was quite dismissive of him sometimes
He
is
was never right.
because Kieran was right. When Kieran got older, he was. There, I don't know what age it was, but Kieran reached a certain age that when Kieran said something, that was the law. That must have been right. But before that, there was a time when Dad, loved Anita and Lisa. He loved his daughters so much that they would get favouritism over the boys. And I think that wound Kieran up sometimes, especially with Anita. And I think he would torture Anita sometimes because of it.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
He gave Anita a terrible time.
Yeah. So that's what I think the reasoning behind that was. Fun enough, and again, it's one of my earliest memories, is we were at 16 Estelle Road, and 16 Estelle Road backed onto the playing fields. Lovely garden. I don't know why we moved from the house. Why did we move from that house?
Because the living room and the hall and the kitchen were doors, and the living room wasn't big enough. The kitchen wasn't big enough. The hall was huge. The larder was out in the hall.
Oh, I can't remember that.
Yeah.
I can.
The bedrooms were amazing. They were huge. Cupboards in every one of them.
Okay. So we were at 16 Estelle Road, which is halfway down Estelle Road.
Yeah.
On the left-hand side if you go down. And it had an amazing garden, and it backed out onto the playing fields. And one of my most vivid memories is David walking into the garden. And David, you always looked up to David. He was your big brother. He was quite he was walking down and he was carrying Anita. And Anita was absolutely bad. Do you remember that, man?
Oh, God,
She fell off the climbing. And when you look at the climbing frame, you just think, oh my God, how did she not have brain damage?
Yeah.
And how did they ever allow such a thing to be built? Because it was awful.
Oh my God. The building, the frame.
And poor Anita
She fell
and poor
from the top
David
and smashed.
all the way down.
Oh.
So poor Anita because it happened to her, and poor David because he had to
carry her out of there. And I took her to the hospital. And, well, I mean, they just let her out. And she was just black and blue, her face. Then Kieran was run over with a car.
What?
and broke his arm. Did he break his arm?
No.
Did he broke his arm?
Nothing happened.
That was down Station Road, wasn't it?
That's right. And Nan was the one who went in the ambulance with him. And I ended up having to go down to the ride box. And Nan was there where Kieran had been.
Right, well, let me tell you one of my memories now. Right, because Nan loved Kieran, didn't she?
Yeah, and David.
She loved
I tried to love she loved you. John was kind of in the middle. Bit unfair, really, in that he was probably smaller.
Well, let me tell you a
You
story.
and I were very close, I have to say,
we were.
growing up.
But I think Nan loved David, but I think Nan loved Kieran more.
Yeah.
And I do, because I remember Nan
She knit him gloves with no fingers.
The reason I think this is I was once, a vivid memory, I was probably about 16 or so. And I was in the kitchen at 2 Estelle Road, and I was talking to you, and the door opened and Nan came in. And she sort of walked in, and I felt this hand on my shoulder, and she touched my shoulder and said, "How's my favourite grandson then?" And I turned round and said, "Hello, Nan." And she went, "Oh, it's not you."
Oh, no.
Yeah, I thought you were Kieran.
Oh,
Ouch!
Ouch indeed. Ouch indeed, Daisy.